Kakadosh Boker Tov, we're going to continue with Daf Amud Aleph 5A1. We were talking about where it says over here that according to the Manda Amar, that he says that it's going to be 4 tfachim, which is basically a baye. So he holds that you're not allowed to be mishtamesh underneath the korah. And therefore the korah, remember the korah is the top beam on the top of the mavui. So he says, so the part which is underneath it, other than the shechah, was going to be permitted to actually come. So now if you're going to use its itztaba, remember the itztaba was a bottom, like on the top, on the bottom, they had like a little tiny, like a step. So that step on the bottom, right, that's what he's saying over here. If you're going to make the itztaba, like the rochav tefach underneath the korah, so it comes out that you're within the mavui, so then it's not going to be above the 20 amot and it's going to be okay. So he says, but you have to make the itztaba in a way that it's inside the mavui. So says the Gemara, no. Everybody holds that you are allowed to use a space underneath the korah. So therefore, and still Abaye holds that you still need 4 tfachim. But what is the machlok between them? Mor savar korah mishum heker, or mor savar korah mishum mechitza. What's the reasoning why you need a korah? Meaning, we said that on the top you need this beam. What's the reasoning why you need the beam? So according to one man Amar, right, which is basically Rav Yosef, he holds that the rabbis instituted the korah because of a heker, meaning to make a recognition, something recognizable, the difference between the Reshut HaRabim and this area, which is the mavui, which becomes like a Reshut HaYachid, right? So he says, because of that, since the entire concept is the heker, so it has to be that if it's going to be above 20 amot, there's no heker. So he says here that you're just coming and you're picking up on the bottom, right? So he's saying it's already enough. Why? Because now it's nikar. Meaning like this, if I'm going to make that on the bottom, I'm going to have a big step, whether it's going to be a 1 amar or whatever it is now. So when I come and pick my step up, I'm going to realize that it's now within the 20 amot, right? My eyesight. And therefore, it's already enough. So he says, more savar. However, the Abaye holds, the korah is not because of a heker, because of recognition, rather it's because of mechitzot, which means that you need a mechitza, right? So therefore he says, what happens is that since you need a mechitza, it doesn't help, even though now you're going to add on from the bottom. Why? Because the itztaba has to be 4 tfachim in order for the mechitza to be considered a mechitza, and therefore he says that's why according to him, it doesn't help. Which means, remember, if you hold that it's a mechitza, it already has 3 mechitzot, because the mavui is closed off on 3 sides. Okay, it's a mavui, which is like a side street, which is closed off on 3 sides. And now it's open on the 4th. So this 4th side, right, you need that it should be a mechitza. And therefore, that's why it has to be that the itzib on the bottom, it has to have 4 tvachim in order for it to be considered a mechitza. If you want, you can answer another answer. According to everybody, the korah is because of a heker. But here, we're talking about that there's a difference between a heker shel mala and a heker shel mata. Meaning, is there a recognition on the top or on the bottom? What does that mean? The more savar, Rav Yosef holds, heker shel mata, heker shel mala. Each one has to be the same thing, which means just like the heker below is going to be enough, just like the heker above. So just like the shiur of the rochav of the korah is a tefach, and that's already enough. So on the bottom, it's enough for tefach, and you don't need anything else. More savar, lo amnin heker shemata heker shemala, and therefore in the bottom you need 4 tvachim, and not just the tefach. Which means again, here we're talking about the thickness of a tefach, or does it need 4 tvachim? V'ibay tema, or if you want, you could answer. There's now another explanation. Dechule alma amnin, according to everybody, we say heker shemata. We do say that they're both the same. But here the machloket is, do we make a decree? Maybe they're going to make it less. What does that mean? When people come and they start standing on top of the step, many times what happens is it gets pushed down. And then it continues going. So all of a sudden you had a certain level, and then it continues going down. It continues lowering. So he says like this. He says, so it's going to become less than a tefach. And then they're not going to realize and then you're carrying in a mavui without the proper, the proper requirements. Okay, fine. So then that's going to be the machloket. So Rav Yosef says that we don't make this decree that maybe it's going to become minimized. According to Abaye, we do. Okay, another case. היה פחות מ10 טפחים וחקק בו להשלימו ל10. כמה חוקק? Imagine right now, you didn't have, the glove of the Korah was less than 10 tvachim, which makes it pasul. Just like a sukkah, less than 10 tvachim, it's pasul. That's 80 centimeters, it's nothing. You said like, you're walking by, you would have to bend down to go underneath. Okay? Now, what did you do? Instead of picking up the Korah, you dug. So now you're making it a kosher height, but only because you dug underneath. How much do you have to do in order to make it kosher? So says the Gemara, what is the question? Whatever you need. If you needed 1 meter, 1 meter, 10 meter, whatever it is, whatever you need until you get to the minimum. So says the Gemara, Ella, but rather, no, you're right. Mishko bekama. Mishko of the chakak, how much you need, which means how much do you have to put in the rochav of the chakak that you're digging, right, in order that it should go from the petach, from the entrance of the mavui to inside. So says the Gemara, Rav Yosef Amar, Rav Yosef argues, and he says, no, you need ba'arba'ah, which is basically 4 tfachim. Okay, so you need 4 tfachim in order to go down. Okay? So now he says, Abaye Amar, Abaye comes and he says, be'arba amot, right, with 4 amot, which means that according to the hymn, right, the mavui was not given a heter if it's going to be less than 4 amot. And therefore, so too the chakak has to be minimum 4 amot. So it has to be 4 amot of digging. And it's not just enough for one place to dig. To dig 4 amot. Okay? So says the Gemara, Leima b'd Rabbi Yami Rabbi Yasi kami palgeh. Why don't we just say that the machloket is between Rabbi Yami and Rabbi Yasi? The Yitmar Bezu was stated, mavui shenifratz mitzido klaper rosho. If you have a mavui that was broken the side up to the top. Okay? So I think this is the picture. Yeah. Here it is. You see the picture here? This is the mavui over here. And then here you have a breach in the wall. Okay, so here you put the korah on the top, right, of the mavui. But here you have a breach from the bottom to the top. Okay? So it says over here like this. So it says, Mavui shenifratz mitzido klape rosho itmar. It was stated, Mishmed Rabbi Amirasi and name Rabbi Amirasi, im yesham pasar ba. If you have from the Korah until the pirza 4 tfachim, which means that you still have 4 tfachim part of the wall, right? So he says, matir. That's going to fix, right, the entire carrying in the entire domain. The pirza eser, right? If it's going to be, even if it had until 10 amot. Okay, vimlav, and if not, which means that you do not have 4 tfachim, so then pachot mishlosha matir. If it's going to be less than 3 tfachim, it's going to permit it. But more than 3 tfachim, it's not going to permit it. Okay, so basically what we're trying to do now is we're trying to see that the takana of the korah was placed on the entrance of the mavui. So when you have 4 tfachim, okay, berosh mavui, so even if they're going to come and minimize it, it's still going to be permitted. So says the Gemara, that of Yosef, he holds of Rabbi Yami, and Abaye, he doesn't hold of Rabbi Yami. Okay, I don't know why it only said Rabbi Yami, not Ravasi, but it was both of them together. Yeah, okay, that's what it says here in the footnote as well. Okay, so Amalechai Abaye is going to come in and tell you, he says, no, Hatam sof mavui, hachat chilat mavui. It all depends if it's at the end of the mavui or the beginning of the mavui. If it's at the end of the mavui, which means this was already a mavui beforehand and then it was a breach. So therefore, it's already enough, a small amount in order to make it kosher again. However, though, if you're making the mavui, then no. To make a mavui, you need to do it properly. Meaning, if something was already done, that's one thing. But if you're making it, it's something else. So yikar ba'amot im, ilolo. If you have 4 amot, then yes. If not, not. So Amar Abaye comes and he says, Mina, how do we know this? The Tanya we learned in the Braita. He says the mavui is not going to be permitted with a lechi, the korah, until you have batim v'chatzirot, which are going to be opened inside of it. Now, if you're going to tell me it's talking about 4 tfachim, what are we talking about then? Yeah? So he says, if you're going to tell me that he opened it up in the middle wall, we have a picture here? Yeah, you have a middle wall. We opened up. I think it's this picture over here. You see you have the middle wall, and then they opened up on the two sides over here. Okay? So he says, right, V'hamar of Nachman. Rav Nachman says, Nikitinan, that we have a masoret, right? We have this masoret. Ezu mavui shenitar, right? What is this mavui? Okay, shenitar belechi v'korah, which was permitted with lechi and korah. So he says, what does this mean? He says, which is a mavui, which is going to be permitted with the lechi. Lechi, remember, is a side post, and the korah is a top post. Kol shorko yoter rechbo, as long as the orech is more than the rochav, meaning that the height is more than the thickness. And then you have the houses which are open up inside of it. Okay? So says the Gemara, 1 second. Rav Yosef, and according to Rav Yosef, how's he going to answer this? They opened it up in the keren zavit, right? Which is basically in a corner. Okay, so I'm going to Abaye comes and he says, okay, so there's actually going to be two pictures here to actually explain this, whether it is that, again, this is a mavui, or they opened it up in the keren zavit, which is by the corner. Okay? So Amar Abaye says, how do we know this? When you have a lechi which is sticking out from the dofen of the mavui, okay? So here it has the picture on the top. This is the lechi abolet. Okay? So he says, what's going to happen? It says, lechi abolet midofno shel mavui. Pachom me'arba'a mot. If it's going to be less than 4 mot, it's like a lechi. And you don't need another lechi to permit it. But if it's more than 4 mot, so then it's like a mavui. And you need another lechi to permit it. Because remember, you need a lechi and a korah to permit it. You need one side post and the top part to permit it. Rav Yosef, and according to Rav Yosef, la puke mitorat lechi, when we're talking about that it's going to be out of the torat lechi, di'ikar ba'mot, lemeva mavui, to become a mavui, even 4 tfachim is already going to be enough to become a mavui. Okay, so now we're going to go back to what we just mentioned. Gufa, amar v'chamavuna lechi abule midovno shel mavui. When you have a lechi which is sticking out of the dofen of the mavui, right? He'amud bet. Pachot me'arba amot. If it's going to be less than 4 amot, nidon mishum lechi. So then it is considered a lechi, and you don't need another lechi to permit it. However, if it's going to be 4 amot, it's like a mavui, and therefore you do need another lechi to permit it. So to lechi, that lechi that we just said, the other lechi, where do you put it? If you're going to put it beside this one, which is bolet, also, so then you're just adding on to the one which is bolet. So Rav Papa said, no, you have to put it on the other side. Meaning, if it's sticking out on one side, you need the lechi on this side, on the other side completely, in order to permit it. Okay? Rav Huna b'Rav Yeshua, Rav Yeshua says, no. Even if you would put it right beside it, if you do tema d'mukeh lebadeh, you're doing it more or less, which means that the gova is either more or less, or more thicker, right? Or you're making it skinnier and shorter, which means that you're making it recognizable that it's a lechi and not just that it's part of the wall. Because if not, it's part of the wall, and then it's nothing. Okay? So Amar Rav Huna b'Rav Yeshua, says Rav Huna b'Rav Yeshua. Lo amran, what are we dealing with? Ele b'mavui shmoneh. That's only if it's going to be a mavui which is 8 amot or more. However, if the mavui is 7, nitar be'omeh merubeh ala parutz. You're going to permit it if there's going to be much more the standing, much more wall than what's open. So if the lechi was 4 amot, it comes out that the rov of the rochav of the petach has a mechitza. So there has a more mechitzot. So therefore, as long as it has a majority wall, it's going to be okay. Kal v'chomer mechatzer, it's going to be a kal v'chomer from the courtyard. Umachatzer, just like a chatzer, sheniter b'lechi v'korah, is only going to be permitted with the lechi v'korah. It's also going to be permitted with memru b'ala parutz. Mavui shenitar b'lechi v'korah, eno din shenitar b'omed ala parutz. So it should also be permitted. So says the Gemara as follows. Says the Gemara, Malach Chatzer shekem b'yitzada b'eser. It says what? The Chatzer, right? It's going to be open with 10 amot, right? And that's also going to be permitted. So there's There's a big difference. A chatzer is not going to become a sur until it has an entrance, a breach of 10 amot. A mavui is in a 4, right? So therefore, or 4 tfachim. So the question is, there's a huge difference between 4 tfachim, which is 32 centimeters, and 10 amot, which is 5 meters. It's a huge difference. So therefore, what he's trying to ask is, what's going on? How does this make sense? So says the Gemara, Kasava Ravuna ben Yeshua, Mavui nami pitzto besi. He says, no, the Mavui is also going to be with 10, right, amot as well. So it means according to him, the Mavui and the Chatzer are the exact same. So you can't learn one from it. Meaning you can't say Kavachomer. Same halachot. Leman kamnin. And who's this like? Ravuna. According to Ravuna. Ravuna, pizzato be'arba sfilele. So in second, Ravuna holds that the pizza is going to be with 4 tfachim. So says the Gemara, Ravuna ben Yeshua tamad nafshe kamar. Ravuna ben Yeshua was going according to his own reasoning. That he wanted to explain that when you have a lechi, which is sticking out from the mavui that Ravuna said, but it's not according to Shitat Ravuna. It's according to himself that he holds that the pizza of a mavui is with 10 amot. And this he actually argues on Ravuna. Ravashi says, Afilu tema mavui shmona lo nami lo tzarich lechi. If you're going to tell me that we're talking about a mavui of 8, also you don't need of 8 amot, you also don't need another lechi. Manavshach, why? I omen nafish nitar beomed. If there's more wall, so you're going to permit it because of the wall, right? Nitar beomed merubel parutz. If there's going to be more breached area, more open area, so then you have a lechi. So Maya Marta, what did you say? The shavut arvayu kadadi that it should be the same. It's a safek midrabanan, right? Safek midrabanan the kula we go lakel. And here, this is only a din drabanan. It's not a shut rabim doraita. It's a mavui, which is drabanan. So because of that, safek drabanan kula we go lenient. Okay, so Amar Rav Chanin, it says Rav Chanin, but Rava, the son of Rava, the name of Rav, mavui shenifratz mitzido be'eser mirosho be'arba'a. Okay, so here you have the picture, which, and this we're going to continue tomorrow, but at least we should understand. Here we're talking about mavui, that if it had a pizza, it has a breach. Now it depends where the breach. The breach is birosho, at the beginning of the mavui. Because this is the entrance, and this used to be a wall. And all of a sudden it became a breach right here. So that's called pizza birosho. This is called betzido. So there's going to be a difference in the halachot. Where exactly is the breach? Is the breach on the side or the beginning of the mavui? And that's where we're going to continue B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow.
Hanzar Baruch.
Thank you.